Okay, so we're back here another Wednesday night, and we're going to continue our series in Philippians. And as we're going through the book of Philippians, I want you to have this idea that when you read the book of Philippians, that the overarching theme for this book is joyful unity. I did it the wrong way. It's joyful unity, and the reason why this is important that we talk about this right now is this reason, is that when you're here on a Wednesday night, I never want you to feel like you're just hearing a lesson for the sake of a lesson, but that when we're here and the things we're talking about, it's about transformation. It's about you would hear things about Jesus, and that would transform your life, that would transform your heart, and that would take you to a deeper relationship with Christ. And this whole idea of joyful unity is really important because of this reason. When you go through life, as you're traveling through life, you're going to have many different seasons of life. That you might have some seasons that are really good. You might have some seasons that are really bad. You might have some seasons that you're just in between, and you're going through the motions. And what's God's heart for you? What's the heart of Jesus? Is that you would have joy through those situations. That whatever situation you find yourself in, that you would have joy. And you think about Paul. Paul right now, he's in jail. He's in prison. But yet when he writes to this church in Philippi, right, there's joy there and there's happiness there. And you think about the church in Philippi, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, that like the core members were a businesswoman, a Philippian jailer, and an ex-slave, right? So they have unity. So why is that important? Because when you travel through the Christian life, you're not supposed to do it alone, but you're supposed to do that with others. And the fact that you're here tonight, that's a good thing. That you don't grow in your faith by yourself most of the time. Are there times you walk alone in faith? Yeah. Is there this independent growth? Yes. But when you look at the church, when you look at the Bible, Jesus died and he placed you within a church family. That the heart of Jesus is that you would grow with others. So if you're gonna do that well, joyful unity. So whether you're in 6th grade or through 12th grade, like what does that look like? Like what does joy look like in your life? And what does unity look like in your life? So that's why we're going through this book right now. And we're going to see through tonight, like, what is something you need for joyful unity to take place. Next slide. Philippians Chapter 1, verses 3 through 5. I want you to hear what's being said right now. This is Paul writing. I thank my God every time I remember you in all my prayers for all of you. I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. So in those 3 verses, right, what's the main point I want you to grab? It would be this slide. Joyful unity takes place when you get out of self. Joyful unity takes place when you get out of self. So that whole idea is this, that you have the church in Philippi, and I told you already, a businesswoman, a jailer, and an ex-slave. Those are the core members of that church, and they have their own struggles. They have their own issues going on, but they hear that Paul is in prison. They hear that Paul is in jail. So what do? Outside of all their own problems, they take time and they make sure that Paul's okay. And they send someone to make sure Paul's okay. And you have Paul. He's in prison. He's in jail. He sees that the church of Philippi, that they care about him. And he's not like, hey, I'm too busy to write to you. No, he takes time to write back to them. And he says, hey, I know you guys have some issues going on in your church. And hey, I know I'm going through a difficult time, but I want to make sure you're doing okay. And both those groups demonstrate to us joyful unity, that you will always have a good reason not to get involved in a situation. You will always have a good reason why you can't get involved in something. The whole idea of growing your faith is this, is that even though you have stuff going on in your own life, you're not so consumed by self that you can't look around and see what's going on in the lives of others. And more importantly, when you see what's going on in the lives of others, you say this, it's not that you're too busy to care, but that you get involved and you help those people out. Both Paul and the church at Philippi, they both had excellent reasons why not to care about one another. They both had good reasons why not to get involved in the other situation. But because they cared about each other, because they both had joy, they both took time to help each other with the issues that they were facing. I pray that you're the type of person that you look at your own life, you look at your own hurt, and it doesn't stop there. But that you say, hey, I know there's stuff going on in my life, but what's going on in my friend's life? Or how can I help them? That the whole idea of being a Christian is this, that you genuinely care about others. That if you want to gauge like your heart for Jesus, Jesus cared about others. What about you? What in your life is showing that you genuinely care about the situations and needs of others? And here's a great thing about your generation, right? That you guys do care. You guys get involved in social issues, and you guys do care about your friends. And that's a great thing about your generation, right? And I hope you continue to be those type of people, that maybe you saw a generation of church, you saw a generation of Christians that we were content with just like doing Bible studies and stuff, and we weren't really involved in each other's lives. You guys are different, and I hope you guys continue to be on that path. Which brings me to my next point. Slide. Philippians Chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. And it says this, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it out unto completion until the day of Christ Jesus. It is right for me to feel this way about all of you, since I have you in my heart, and whether I am in chains or defending and confirming the gospel, all of you sharing God's grace with me, God can testify how I long for all of you with the affection of Christ Jesus. So what's happening in these verses up here is that Paul is talking about the church at Philippi, and he says, hey, I am so proud of you. Like, I love you guys so much that you are in my heart, and I am confident that Jesus is going to do great things through you. And the point I want you to get from those verses will be this. Joyful unity takes place when you are thankful for the people that God has surrounded you with. Joyful unity takes place when you are thankful for the people that God has surrounded you with. And a more in-depth answer to that would be this. You're thankful for the people that God has placed in your life that have shaped your heart for His. That you're thankful for the people that God has placed in your life that have taken time to pour into you to make you the person that you are today. That Paul looked at that church at Philippi and he said, hey, I have loved mentoring you, and by mentoring you, you have made me a better Christian. And that church in Philippi, they looked at Paul as someone that took time to care for them, that Paul took time to help them grow in their faith. And both those groups recognized the need for each other. So what I want to do tonight is tell you about 3 guys in my life that poured into me and how I am thankful for them. And hopefully as I'm telling my story tonight, you think about the people that God has placed in your life and how they have shaped you. So, next slide. That is my former youth pastor, and he's been a youth pastor since 2002, and he's retiring in March. And he was old back in 2004 when I knew him, so I'm not sure how he youth pastored for 16 more years. So that won't be me. I won't be a 20-year youth pastor or 18-year youth pastor. But anyways, this guy was amazing. And what he taught me about ministry and about Jesus was simply being there for people. Simply being there for people. And his name was Andy, so that's Pastor Andy. When I met Pastor Andy, I was 17 years old, and my life was all messed up. And here's why. I had moved out of my mom's home when I was 17. I moved out of her home, and I moved into my dad's home. And my mom's home, it wasn't the worst home, it wasn't the best home, but there was a level of dysfunction there. So I moved out of there into my dad's home, and me and my dad had never really lived together. I saw him every other weekend, so we're adjusting to life with each other. And have you guys ever argued? If you've ever argued with your parent, raise your hand. Okay, put those hands down. Me and my dad actually had a fight. Okay, we didn't throw fists. I wasn't that dumb. He was 18 years in the Navy, but we had this wrestling match, and we weren't goofing around. We were literally trying to hurt each other, and we destroyed this room. And then here's what happened. I was adjusting, living in my dad's house. My mom, that house was super controlling. My dad's house, there was no control whatsoever. So he was hey, figure out things on your own. I remember I missed a ride to school, right? And he came into my room, and then that was causing this massive fight that we had. And me being the really bad guy that I am, I stormed out the house, and I walked to school. Right, yeah, me being the rebel, right? But here's the thing. My school was 45 minutes away. So me being this dumb guy, I ended up hitchhiking, right? And I don't do that. So I hitchhiked, and I was walking on the highway at one point, and the police officer picked me up, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "I'm walking to school." Get in the car. And then he dropped me off at a bookstore, and he said, "Okay, look, I'm not going to take you to jail or anything, but you need to call your parents, and you need to make sure that you don't leave this bookstore till your parents get here, because I'm going to be watching you won't know." So then I had to wait in the bookstore, and I'm just explaining to you, that was me at 17 years old, completely messed up and not knowing anything about life. And for some of you, when I look at your family situation, if you come from a good family, or a family where you guys just don't literally wrestle each other, I don't understand you for the most part, because that wasn't my background. But if you come from a messed up family and there's a lot of brokenness there, I relate to that. And being 17 years old and completely messed up and not knowing much about life, I ended up in this guy's youth group. And what did he do with me? He simply took me out to lunch. I remember there was days when I was in college and I couldn't find a ride home. He drove 3 hours, right? So I guess 6 hours in total, to pick me up and bring me home from college. And I remember when I wanted to do ministry, and I felt like I wanted to be a youth pastor, and a lot of it had to do with him. And I saw how he treated people, and I remember he took me on hospital visits. I remember how he would just talk with patients in the hospital. And I just remember seeing how this guy did the ministry of presence. And, okay, he didn't always do it right, because there's this one time in college, I remember I was back home, had a girlfriend, we broke up, and I was really depressed. And he says, "Daryl, let's go to Pizza Hut." So he threw me in his car, we went to Pizza Hut, and I'm not eating anything, he's staring at me. And he says, so you think you're depressed right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty depressed, pretty bummed out." Because here's the thing, I ordered a bear and flowers for this girl, and she broke up with me before the bear and flowers got there. And I couldn't cancel the order because they got there the next day and everything. And I told him all this. And he said, "Daryl, I know you think you're depressed right now. You're going to be really depressed when you see her at school. That's when you're going to be depressed. What you're feeling right now, you're going to be praying to feel this way once you see her at school with her new boyfriend." And I'm just and then he's like, "Are you going to eat your breadstick or not? Because I didn't pay for you not to eat a breadstick." So, I'm not saying he didn't get it right all the time, right? There's things he messed up, but for the most part, he genuinely cared. And he didn't know about every single problem going on in my life, but he simply took me out to do lunch and to do ministry with them. And just for those brief moments, he made me feel really good about life. And for some of you guys, right, it's why I take you out bowling, or we go to movies, or, we do different things. Why? It's because I don't know every single issue going on in your life, but I know there's things going on there. And those times when we go out to Chick-fil-A or Burger King or movies or bowling, it's my hope that you simply have a good time and that you get to know me better and I get to know you better. And whatever issue you're going through in life, that you can pause and say, hey, I don't have to think about that right now. What I learned about Jesus from this guy was simply being there for people. Okay, I'm going to show you the next guy who Jesus really used me to mold me. Slide. It would be this guy. This is the youth pastor I interned with when I was in college, and this is what he taught me. Can we play that video? So I'm going to show you what he taught me.
What are you doing? Did you not ever fight as a kid? No, I read books on fighting. I guess I won.
Oh, maybe you should trap him down here.
What exactly do you do in open hand fighting? Daryl just slapped me in the back and ran off.
Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes.
Hey,
Your turn.
Dog pile, dog pile, dog pile. Open-handed.
Open hand, you guys.
Open hand.
No fist, open hand.
No fist, open hand.
Only slapping, no punching.
Slapping, no punching. I know.
It's a video.
Yes.
All right, so what I learned from Pastor Jamie was the whole idea that Jesus and fun can be one and the same. That you don't take Jesus here and you don't put fun here, but Jesus and fun should do this. So the whole thing is this: if you are a Christian and if it's not fun, you're doing it wrong. That Jesus and fun should be one and the same for you. That are there times we do lessons? Are there times when it's serious? Yes. But that shouldn't be all of your faith. That your faith should make you laugh. Your faith should make you smile. Your faith should make you happy. It's why we do game nights. It's why we do Madden tournaments. It's why we have like the girls in the goofy sweaters and the sleepovers, right? Because we want you to have fun. And by having fun, you're building community with each other. And you're building a sense of belonging, and that brings unity. And then when you have fun on one level, we want you to have fun on a deeper level. That's why we have some of you guys up here and you lead worship, because that's fun for you. Or we have students that teach, because that's fun for them. Or we have students that they go to Homewood, and that's fun. Or some of you, right, you help put together worship-like nights, and that's fun for you. Why? Because Jesus and fun should not be divided. And I learned that from him. Jesus and fun should go hand in hand. And I'll show you like the last person who I learned something from that God really used in my life will be this person. That's Chewbacca the Wookiee. Okay, no, God did not use Chewbacca the Wookiee. Okay, that's more of a nerd thing, but that's not really shaping. I guess it did shape me a little bit, but that's not the point. Okay, we'll move on. God used the guy with hair. The guy in the red, he just got a photobomb, not really important. But the guy in the jacket, that's Pastor Steve, and that's the pastor I interned with when I was in North Carolina. And what he taught me was this: that you should love Jesus with your mind, that he would sit me down and he would ask me questions about God and the Bible and about life and how it all worked together. That he would say, hey, yeah, I'm glad you love Jesus with your heart, but Daryl, what about your mind? What about your mind? Like, how are you thinking as a Christian? So that's why we do things like Theology Thursday, or that's why we have like real deep spiritual conversations. Why? Because that should be shaping your life as well. That God used all three of those guys to shape me in different ways. A ministry of having fun, a ministry of simply being there for people, a ministry about thinking well about Jesus. So my question for you is this: who has God used to shape you right now? Right? That pause and be thankful that God has used people in your life to shape you, and that should create a heart of gratitude and thankfulness on one level. And on another level, it should do this: that I am so glad I had Pastor Andy and Pastor Jamie and Pastor Steve in my life. And my hope is this: that I could be a Pastor Jamie, a Pastor Andy, and a Pastor Steve to someone else. That God uses people to mentor and shape you so that one day you can be the mentor. So that one day someone can look at you and say, I am so glad I had you in my life. I am so glad I had a Caleb Barnett in my life. I'm so glad I had a Tyson or Anna or a Becca or a Grace or a Kaylee or a Cooper or a Cullen or a Noah, right? That someday you should want to be that person. And like I say, some of these guys I still talk to, some of these guys I don't talk to anymore. But all your mentors, right, even though they shaped me in different ways, they all had the same goal. And here's the goal they had. Last slide. It's Philippians Chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. That all my mentors, right, their hope was this: that I would be pure and blameless before Jesus. As your youth pastor, my goal is this: that you will be pure and blameless before Jesus, that your heart and mind would be pure before God, and that you would walk and you would live your life in such a way that you had a deep impact on others. That's what their goal was in my life. That's my goal for you. And hopefully that's your goal, to impact someone else. How does joyful unity take place? It's when you're genuinely thankful for the people God has placed in your life that have shaped you so that you can shape someone else. Paul was thankful for the church of Philippi, and the church of Philippi was thankful for Paul, and Paul's hope was that church, that they would be thankful, that they would impact others. I hope you guys would do the same. So I'm going to ask the band to come back up. And as they're coming up, for application, if you want to think about, like, how do you take this message home, it would be this: whoever has been shaping you in your life, whoever has placed a deep impact on helping you grow, how about you send that person a text message, so that you're just saying, hey, thank you for what you've done for me. Why? Because that will make you a thankful person, and that will put joy in your heart, and that will show the importance of being with each other. So I'll pray, and then they can sing. Dear Jesus, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for this whole idea of joyful unity, and thank you for the people you have placed in all of our lives that have shaped us and helped our hearts to reflect your heart. And I pray for our students in here that they would recognize that there's adults, there's youth leaders, coaches, parents that have poured into them with the hope that they will someday pour into other people. We love you. We give this prayer in your name. Amen.